Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. A ruthless mercenary has his life destroyed when his body is used as an experiment to create an immortal mutant. Today we will recap the story of the 2016 movie, Deadpool. One of the world's most famous antiheroes gets into a cab on the biggest mission of his life. Feeling lonely, Deadpool decides to get out of the back seat and sits next to an Indian driver named Dopinder. During the conversation, the young man tells about Geeta, the girl he is madly in love with. Dopinder says that the young woman would have been a wonderful wife to him if his cousin, Bandu, had not stolen her heart. Upon hearing this, Deadpool, who has just suffered a major love disappointment, advises the boy to grab love with all his might and never let go. When asked why he is wearing that red suit, the anti-hero tells him that he is after some bad guys. He has been waiting for 1 year, 3 weeks, 6 days and 14 minutes to make Ajax, a sadistic and cruel scientist, fix the mess he did to his face. Meanwhile, the scientist is making deals with the head of the military army and selling the mutants he has produced in his laboratory as if they were weapons of war. After the merchandise is sold, Ajax and his men leave. Deadpool is almost at his destination when he realizes that he has forgotten his ammunition pouch. He has only 12 bullets in his pistol and, after saying goodbye to Dopinder, he patiently waits for the moment to attack his target. Sitting on the edge of a suspension bridge, Deadpool spots the villains approaching and springs into action. First, he breaks into one of the vehicles and eliminates all the bad guys inside. The swordsman uses the bodies of his enemies to knock out approaching bikers intent on eliminating them, causing a serious traffic accident. While trying to strangle one of the smugglers, another vehicle with armed men approaches and Deadpool uses his feet to speed up the car, which overturns shortly after. In that instant, heads are decapitated and bodies are thrown against the boards. Images of the accident are broadcasted on the news, and upon hearing the reporter talking about a man in a red suit, Colossus soon realizes that Deadpool is responsible for this catastrophe. Immediately, he abandons his breakfast and calls Negasonic to accompany him to the scene of the accident. Seeing armed men taking over the road, the drivers decide to abandon their vehicles and flee on foot, since the road was blocked after the accident. Armed men surround the car where Deadpool is hiding. Since he has only 12 bullets, the swordsman decides to use them strategically and counts down while eliminating his opponents. Suddenly, a skilled biker appears and shoots Deadpool. While his body regenerates, he tries to put a bullet in the man's head, who eventually manages to escape. Now only 7 bullets remain, and in order not to risk missing the next shots, Deadpool runs between the cars for cover as he approaches his enemies. He takes every opportunity to use his pistol on those guys' heads and causes a big explosion after shooting a grenade. When Deadpool pauses to celebrate his victory, one of the bad guys approaches and machine guns him in the back. Believing his enemy to be dead, the man approaches and is surprised by a bullet to the head. Then the anti-hero finishes unloading his pistol by shooting 3 other bandits who appear in his path. However, what Deadpool didn't realize is that one of his opponents is a mutant and was not eliminated with the headshot. Therefore, the anti-hero needs to resort to the help of his swords to cut the enemy in half. But in order for you to understand how we got to this point in the story, we need to explain what happened 2 years before Deadpool was shot in the buttocks. Wade Wilson, as he was called, ordered a pizza to be delivered to Gavin Merchant's address. The mercenary was hired by Megan Orlovsky to intimidate Jeremy, who, when not at his delivery job, works overtime as a stalker. As such, Wade orders the boy to stay away from the girl and states that if he approaches her again, he will have at least one of his limbs torn off. After resolving the situation with Jeremy, the mercenary goes to talk to Megan and states that that man will no longer bother her. Relieved, the young woman hugs him and says that Wade is her hero. Unhappy at being compared to those good guys, the man leaves and says that he will never be a superhero. Wade considers himself just a bad guy who gets paid to beat up even worse guys. After another day at work, he goes for a drink at the bar Sister Margaret, where Weasel works. As soon as he arrives at the establishment, he causes discord among the customers and a fight breaks out. Without even knowing what is happening, Booth is punched and falls unconscious to the floor. Weasel then walks over to check if the man is still breathing. When he verifies that Booth is still alive, everyone around is disappointed and goes back to drinking as if nothing happened. Minutes later, Vanessa approaches Wade and during their conversation, he asks what he could get for $275. And Vanessa says that for that amount, they can do whatever Wade wants for 48 minutes. Then, since he could choose whatever he wanted, the mercenary decides to take her to an amusement park, where they spend the 48 minutes having fun with various games. However, when time comes to an end, the couple decides to continue having fun, and after that they never parted again. Until Christmas, when Wade asks Vanessa to marry him. On that day, they take a photo together as a souvenir of that special moment. However, minutes later, Wade suddenly faints and Vanessa has to rush him to the hospital. After tests, the man is diagnosed with cancer of the liver, lung, prostate, and brain. Upon hearing the sad news, Vanessa tries to stay strong and talks to the doctor in search of a possible cure for that disease. Meanwhile, Wade watches his fiancée's face intently, as if this is the last time he will ever see her. Back in the present day, Deadpool continues his hunt for Ajax and pursues a mysterious biker, believing him to be his enemy. After knocking him down and delivering a string of kicks to that guy, the mutant removes his helmet and, upon making sure that this is indeed his target, runs his sword through the scientist's shoulder. Between life and death, the man tries to understand why he is being attacked because he still cannot identify who the guy behind that mask is. So Wade makes a point of revealing his identity, and just as he was about to smash the brains out of the villain who turned him into that terrifying thing, Colossus shows up to spoil the fun. As he is thrown away, Deadpool remembers what happened after his cancer was diagnosed. A few days after the test results were released, Wade prepares to be hospitalized, even though he knows that his illness will not be cured. The man doesn't want to stay home lest Vanessa be dragged into that depressing situation along with him. All Wade wished was that his would have good memories when he left. Before being hospitalized, the former mercenary decides to stop by the bar he used to frequent to say goodbye to his friend, Weasel. During the conversation, the bartender hands Wade a card and informs him that the guy sitting at the next table is looking for him. With nothing to lose, Wade decides to talk to Agent Smith and discovers that the man in the suit and tie is a recruiter. The mysterious guy reveals that he works for an organization that can help him cure his cancer and, as a bonus, give him abilities that many people dream of having. Suspicious that the whole thing is a big lie, Wade decides to leave. However, that night, he cannot forget the words of Agent Smith. Just thinking that Vanessa will not have to suffer through his death, the man decides to grab his only chance to be cured. After throwing Deadpool away and saving Ajax's life, Colossus once again tries to convince the mutant to join the X-Men. However, the anti-hero assures that he will never be part of the good guys club and tries to get Colossus out of the way in order to finish his revenge. While they were arguing, Ajax manages to escape, and upon realizing that the one man who could fix his face has fled, Deadpool becomes enraged and attacks the mutant. The big problem is that his blows do not cause any scratches on Colossus. Instead, it is the mutant who is injured, having his fists and ankles broken. After receiving a sharp blow, Deadpool is handcuffed and Colossus intends to take him to the mansion so he can talk to Professor X. As his body is dragged across the asphalt, Wade releases his own fist with a knife in order to escape those handcuffs. He then jumps on the back of a passing truck and manages to free himself from the mutant. Lying there in the middle of a pile of garbage, Deadpool reflects on the decision that led him to that terrible situation. The exact moment when his whole life was turned upside down was when he agreed to participate in that experiment, with a small expectation that he could live a long life with his beloved. Within the very first minutes of entering the laboratory, Wade realizes that he has gotten himself into a big mess, but it is too late to turn back. He is quickly strapped onto a stretcher, and it is at this point that Wade meets Dr. Ajax. Without the slightest concern for euphemisms, Ajax is honest in saying that this experiment will cause unbearable pain, but if his patient manages to survive, he will become an invincible machine. The scientist then injects Wade with a serum that activates whatever mutant gene is hidden in his DNA. However, for the drug to work, Wade must be subjected to severe stress. Each person who undergoes that treatment suffers a different effect. Angel, the scientist's right arm, has resulted in superhuman strength, and Ajax has had his reflexes improved. In addition, his nerve endings have been destroyed, so he no longer feels pain. In the weeks that followed, Wade suffered the most diverse kinds of torture. His body was overcome with adrenaline and driven to the ultimate instinct of survival. Since his mutant genes had not yet manifested, Ajax and his team continued to hurt the man in different and increasingly painful ways. The torture sessions would continue until Wade mutated, or died. Despite living in the biggest hell mankind has ever seen, the man tries hard never to lose his sense of humor and ends up making friends with David Cunningham, another patient who was being held in that place against his will. As a last resort to release Wade's powers, Ajax decides to put him in the oxygen chamber, where the oxygen will be decreased to the point where the patient will feel like he is suffocating. At that point, when he is about to pass out, the oxygen will be increased again, and this will repeat itself for several hours. Before being sent to the greatest torture of his life, Wade discovers that that laboratory does not produce superheroes, but super soldiers, who are controlled by a collar and sold as merchandise. During the weekend, Wade remains in that state of near death, until his mutation finally manifests and he becomes the devil himself. Thanks to the mutation that caused that bizarre and monstrous appearance, Wade's cancer begins to regress. Before being sent back to the oxygen chamber, the man headbutts the approaching mutant to close the machine and manages to grab the matchstick that she constantly carries in her mouth. During the night, Deadpool uses his own fingers to light a fire which, when it comes into contact with oxygen, causes a huge explosion, destroying most of the laboratory. At that moment, Ajax goes there to find out what has happened and realizes that Wade has managed to escape. The man attacks his enemy with all his remaining strength, but gives up killing him when the scientist claims to be the only one capable of fixing his ugly face. Upon hearing this, Wade lets his guard down and Ajax takes the opportunity to defeat him. After knocking down his enemy, the man takes a metal bar and goes through the mutant's body, piercing his heart. Before he loses consciousness, Wade sees his friend, David, tied to the ground with the flames about to consume him. Hours later, the former mercenary wakes up and discovers that he not only got the cure for cancer, he got the cure for anything. However, for him, there was only one thing that really mattered. The next day, Wade went to visit Vanessa, intending to tell her everything that had happened. The man wears a jacket and covers his head with a hood as he chases her through the streets. Wherever he goes, the mutant must face the frightened looks of the people around him. Afraid of the reaction Vanessa will have when she sees him and afraid of being rejected by her, Wade leaves. He decides to find Ajax and have him fix his face before he goes to talk to his wife. In a conversation with Weasel, Wade reveals his plan. He tells him that he will go after the goons who work in that laboratory until he finds someone who will reveal Ajax's whereabouts. His friend then advises him to put on a costume and hide his face. First, so as not to frighten people, and second, so that his enemy will not find out that he is alive. It is at this moment, during the conversation with Weasel, that Wade decides that his codename will be Deadpool. The man then returns home and begins to sew his anti-hero costume. His first attempt is a white sweatshirt ensemble coupled with a mask made from a cotton shirt, which makes Wade look like a real angel of death. However, the problem with this outfit is that after the missions, Deadpool comes home all stained red. Therefore, he decides to adopt another strategy and sews a red suit to disguise the blood. After a few missions, Wade manages to improve his suit and uses the skills he acquired when he was a mercenary to go after Ajax's henchmen, because the scientist had disappeared from the map. Wherever he went, Deadpool collected kills and barely managed to interrogate his targets, as he eliminated them before they even had a chance to open their mouths. After several months, Wade finds the same guy who recruited him trying to attract a new victim. The vigilante chases this guy through the streets and manages to capture him. After some torture sessions, he manages to extract all the information he needs to find Ajax. So Deadpool takes a cab to surprise his old friend, and that is how he meets Dopinder. After that, we know what happened. Injured and disappointed that his plan didn't work out as expected, Wade decides to return home. Since escaping from that laboratory, the mutant shares a home with a blind lady named Al. When he realizes that someone is approaching the door, Al grabs her cane and prepares to attack, but ends up falling to the floor after tripping over the vacuum cleaner. Wade then opens the door and discovers that the old lady was assembling a chest of drawers that has just arrived in the mail. The problem is that she forgot to use the screws, and the whole piece of furniture falls apart. Furious at everything going wrong with his day, Deadpool goes to his room to whine. Meanwhile, Ajax arrives at his hideout and tells Angel that he has discovered the true identity of the man in red. After treating his wounds, the scientist begins to think of a plan to find him before he ends up being surprised again. After taking a shower, Wade gets ready for bed and Al sits down next to him on the couch. The mutant then thanks her for all the support he has received over the past few months. He uses his micro hand to touch the woman's face, who advises him to go after Vanessa. Al believes that if Vanessa loves Wade, she will accept him regardless of his appearance. However, the mutant claims that the old woman is only saying this because she cannot see him. Otherwise, he would understand why he can't go talk to Vanessa until his face is fixed. Hours later, Ajax and his assistant Angel go to the Sister Margaret bar, for it was there that Agent Smith first met Wade. The man interrogates Weasel, but he claims he has never heard of a guy named Wade Wilson. Angel then finds a photo of Wade and Vanessa, which the boy left as a souvenir for his friend before he was hospitalized. The mutant then grabs the bartender by the neck, but Ajax orders her to let him go when all the bar patrons point their guns at them. As soon as the duo leaves, Weasel calls his friend and informs him that the villains are after Vanessa. Desperate, Wade runs to the nightclub where the woman works and enters the establishment looking for her. When he catches sight of her, the man slowly approaches. But before Vanessa could see him, he hides, because even after so many months, Wade is still afraid of her reaction. The mutant runs to the bathroom and splashes some water on his face in an attempt to muster the courage to talk to his ex-fiancée. Wade then comes out of the bathroom and one of the nightclub employees informs Vanessa that someone is looking for her outside to talk about an old boyfriend. The woman quickly goes to talk to this mysterious person and, seeing a hooded man hiding in the dark, believes that this is Wade. However, to his surprise, Ajax reveals himself and Angel captures the woman before she could escape. Since he can't find Vanessa anywhere, Wade asks his friend about her whereabouts and Weasel claims to have seen the woman leaving through the back door. As he leaves the nightclub, the man finds a little gift left by Ajax and soon realizes that Vanessa has been captured by him. Immediately, the two friends return home and Wade is furious, destroying everything in his path. Suddenly, he receives a message from Ajax, which was sent on Vanessa's phone. The man wants to meet him at the junkyard at noon. Deadpool takes all the weapons he finds in the house and puts them in a bag, because he knows that it will not be easy at all to face him. Before he leaves, he states that he loves the old woman and thanks her for having taken him in all this time. Since he is at a disadvantage in that battle, Deadpool goes to the X-Men mansion and enlists the help of Colossus and the teenage Negasonic to rescue Vanessa, since it was their fault that Ajax managed to escape. Once again, Dopinder is summoned to help Deadpool in his mission. This time, the taxi driver must take the three mutants to the junkyard. During the drive, Wade asks if the boy has managed to win Gita's heart. The driver says that he has tried to do so, but Bandu, his cousin, is more skillful and handsome than he is. So, he needs to kidnap him, and at that moment, Bandu is trapped in his trunk. When Deadpool hears this, he is proud of the boy, but he has to lecture him to make him look good to Colossus, who is in the back seat listening to the whole conversation. When they reach their destination, the taxi driver says goodbye to his friend and the trio gets out of the car. As they walk towards Ajax's hideout, Wade realizes that he has forgotten his gun bag in the cab. It is almost noon and Dopinder is gone. So Deadpool decides to do things the old-fashioned way and face his enemy using only his two swords. Suddenly, dozens of armed soldiers surround the mutants and Angel appears to stop them from crossing the barrier. Her mission is to eliminate Deadpool, but Colossus decides to confront her so Wade can focus his energies on saving Vanessa. However, the big guy is knocked down with a single punch and Negasonic needs to interfere. The girl runs towards the woman and throws her away. So Angel orders the soldiers to shoot, and Colossus throws a truck tire to knock those guys out. While the Man of Steel and Angel face off, Deadpool and Negasonic hide behind a mountain of rubble to avoid being hit by bullets. Wade then rips off his underwear to use as a peace flag. When the soldiers have ceased firing, the anti-hero states that he will spare them if they put down their weapons. However, his plan goes awry and the men shoot back. The swordsman has no choice but to attack them, tearing their bodies in half and severing their heads. Meanwhile, Colossus and Angel keep bickering over which one is the strongest and teenage Negasonic helps Deadpool get to the second floor of the junkyard, where Ajax and Vanessa are. She uses her powers to hurl the swordsman into it along with a metal plate. When he finally comes face to face with his enemy again, Wade spots Vanessa trapped inside the oxygen chamber and promises that he will save her. When she realizes that that masked guy is her ex-fiancé, the woman is furious and Ajax cuts off the oxygen in the chamber. The man takes two axes and attacks Deadpool. They exchange a few blows, and Wade throws one of his swords into the chamber so that the oxygen from the outside can get in. Since he has only one sword, Deadpool is at a disadvantage and has his second sword destroyed by Ajax. Now he will have to fight totally unarmed. Meanwhile, Colossus continues to get beaten by Angel, who uses a metal cable to choke him. With the help of the sword, Vanessa manages to free herself from the restraints that hold her in the chamber. Deadpool and Ajax are still fighting and the scientist pulls out a small knife that was hidden in his opponent's suit to attack him. After throwing Wade away, Ajax pierces his head and continues punching his face. Just then, Vanessa manages to get out of the oxygen chamber and uses her sword to stab Ajax in the back. Because his brain has been pierced, Wade is unable to stand up, much less think clearly. Seeing Vanessa lying on the ground, he begins to imagine little cartoon creatures around her. Then, Ajax gets up and attacks the woman. In an attempt to save Colossus, Negasonic uses the full strength of her powers, causing a huge explosion that destroys the entire perimeter. By this time, Deadpool has managed to recover from the damage to his head and attacks Ajax while trying to prevent Vanessa from being crushed by the containers. As the second floor is falling and their bodies are sliding down, Wade decides to put the woman back in the oxygen chamber so that she is not destroyed by the fall. When Colossus sees that everything around him is collapsing, he takes the two girls and runs away. Just then, the whole place collapses and the chamber where Vanessa is covered by debris. Minutes later, she is saved by the mutants and comes out of that disaster practically unscathed. Wade appears next, and just when he thinks he has his happy ending, Ajax appears and attacks him. They both roll out of the rubble and, at the first opportunity, Deadpool breaks both of that man's arms. He claims that the scientist will fix his face, and upon hearing this, Ajax begins to laugh. The man claims that there is no cure for Wade, so he will have to live with that ugly face forever. That being the case, Deadpool takes the small pistol that Al gave him and intends to use it to blow that guy's brains out. However, Colossus appears seconds before the vigilante gets his revenge and tries to convince him to make the right choice. While the mutant gives his speech about being a hero, Deadpool pulls the trigger and finishes his mission. After throwing up all his breakfast, Colossus and the teenage Negasonic watch from the sidelines as Wade tries to explain himself to Vanessa. The woman is furious at having been dumped and punches her ex-fiancé several times. When she finishes taking out all her anger, the man asks her forgiveness for leaving without saying goodbye and never coming back to tell her what happened. Wade explains that he was afraid to talk to Vanessa, because the guy under that mask is not the same guy she remembers. The woman then removes the mask and is confronted with Wolverine's face. After removing the second mask, she is startled by what she sees, but says that after a period of adjustment and a few drinks, she will be happy to kiss that face. The mutants are surprised by Vanessa's reaction and Wade orders them back to the Xavier mansion. Before he leaves, Colossus states that one day he will be able to bring him into the X-Men. Apparently, Vanessa didn't need much time to get used to her beloved's new appearance and kisses Wade desperately, just like old times. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.